Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, the founder of People Plus Purpose, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today, my guest is Renee Gittings. Renee is an independent registered dental hygienist currently based out of Denver, and she's been in practice for almost a decade now. She is passionate about continuing education, volunteering opportunities, and teaching her patients. Entrepreneurial in spirit, Cloud Dentistry has provided Renee an opportunity to be self-employed while building other areas of her life. Work-life balance is very important to her. She's inspired to create and grow in and outside of the dental industry. So welcome to the podcast, Renee.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matthew. I appreciate it. It's
Absolutely.
yeah, it's an honor to be here and um yeah, I'm delighted to be speaking with you and sharing a little bit about my story and Cloud has completely changed my life. So it's definitely going to change the dental world as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good. So maybe first, before we talk maybe a little bit about cloud, if you would like, tell us for anybody who's not sure, then what it means to be an independent dental hygienist. I mean, there may be dental hygienists who don't really know the word independent connected to it. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so an independent contractor, it all goes back to taxes. So you're either classified as two things, a business owner or an independent contractor or a W-2 employee. So what that means on taxation purposes is I fill out a 1099. So I'm self-employed is what the IRS
Okay.
would consider an independent contractor. Um, and there's a lot that goes with that. So,
Yeah.
and that's the business side of it that I love. And I've honestly, I know people hate taxes, but it's so intriguing to me. I love learning about it, and it's kind of transitioning me into what's next for me as far as maybe owning my own business. And yeah,
Yeah, that's great. We had a nice chat before we hit record on this, just in terms of journeys and where the future may be taking you. So I think that that's great to be able to kind of see it as something that's in process, right? So I think that's great. Tell us a little bit about kind of how you got connected with cloud dentistry. What drew you into that direction?
yeah. So I found my first full-time job through AOC, which is Assistance on Call, a staffing agency. And that was in 2017. I graduated in 2015. So I believe 2014 is when Cloud was founded. But when I heard about it, it was end of 2017, early 2018. And dental practices didn't really know what it was. So while on those Fridays I was supplementing my income through AOC, I was um, pretty much putting cloud in dentists' ears because no one really knew about it. So yeah, I was with Assistants on Call and just transferred over to cloud. Um, just because that having the middleman gone, I had more money in my pockets and I get to control things. I get to control my radius, my income. Um, just have a little bit more autonomy there. And yeah, who doesn't want that? So yeah,
Freedom is a good thing.
freedom is a
I don't
great
think
thing.
anybody would debate us on that piece, that freedom is a good thing. So you continued on with cloud as a piece of what you were doing, and then
Mhm.
how did that
Yeah.
work into where did that go over time?
Yep. So I was working full time up until COVID-19, and then I was just using cloud on my Fridays, which I think most dental hygienists and assistants do is those days that you're not working, they
Mhm.
use it. Um, and I think now after COVID, it's definitely more people are full time with it. I think 30% of hygienists stopped working or retired or did something else. So the demand shot up, and I think that's when cloud, you know, really started being useful to both the offices and the hygienists and assistants. So yeah, then I had some issues with that full-time office I was at just with vaccinations and all those things. So I was like, no, I'll just try this full time and see how I like it. And that was a risk I was just willing to take. And I kind of just learned from there. And yeah, I've been 2.5 years just being on cloud. And yeah, I think that military background it's okay for me. I'm okay with adapting and change and not doing the monotonous take that same exit every day.
Right,
I could do the commutes and yeah.
right. So that was kind of the movement into saying, I'm working for myself now. I'm self-employed with this change, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, which, has its pros and cons. I think the biggest con to that is just not being able to see the progression of patients, right? So, I could treat a patient with advanced periodontitis and then I don't see him again, or another hygienist does a reevaluation. So, I think that's the biggest thing is that not having the rapport with patients consistently over time. But with that, I could just be a shining light and leave at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
So
So maybe it doesn't allow for the same level maybe of ongoing relationship development over time.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is you've got a lot more people that you're touching to some degree. So
Hmm.
a lot more touch points, I guess, with people that you could maybe make a difference for.
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say there's more pros than cons though. So that's one con, and that's really the only one for me. So um, I again I love the business side of it and being able to tell other people my value. In Denver, I'm based in Denver, so in Colorado we have a lot more um, like scope of practice, so we're able to do a lot more things than other states, and so we are able to charge a higher rate. And I think for a long time, hygienists have felt unappreciated and undervalued and underpaid in some ways.
Mhm.
So I know this is, especially now with our economy, it's difficult for practices and for us with the rates being high, but um, we do live in a capitalist society that is supply and demand,
Right.
and we're in demand, and I think we'll always be in demand. It's just, when is that going to cap? And Colorado hasn't had that cap for dental hygienists and assistants. So yeah, that's a pro for me.
Yeah. As
And
far
I
as
get to
as far as cons go, that you had just kind of one con for you. Can you propose what other cons might be for other people? Or maybe if they were not in Colorado, if they were in a more restrictive state,
yeah.
might there be other cons that come to mind?
Yeah, I think the commuting is a big con for people, especially ones with families and kids. And I haven't started a family yet, so that's not too big of an issue for me. So I think the commuting is probably a con. The adapting to new office every day. If you don't like change, that would be very difficult. And I think with hygiene though, it's very much the same thing. Like, you need the same seven things for an appointment usually. So you find those things in the day can go pretty smoothly. Um, so I think that would be possibly a con for someone. And then the business side of it, if you're not interested in organizing your mileage and your deductions and um, having a CPA, like the business side of it, that could be a con for someone.
Mhm. Okay.
And the self-employment taxes are awfully high. So you have to be very organized with your deductions and your write-offs. So there's modalities though that help with that. So there's QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is what I use, and that's helped me kind of organize. I was writing it all on paper, very old school the first year or two. So um, yeah, I am old school like that. I do like to write things down.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
still kind of do.
yeah.
But yeah. So
Maybe other
yeah.
pros then that come to mind, things that clearly have been beneficial for you, or other things you can imagine that are reasons people might want to go, maybe I should look into this.
Uh, the pros of just like
Yeah, of
doing,
making this kind of move towards more independence and being
yeah, I
being more business minded or having those opportunities. What else comes to mind as benefits, would you say?
yeah, I think creating your own schedule is always a good thing. It's kind of limited though, because if you reduce your hours, say to like 10 to 5, I mean, most offices aren't open just 10 to 5, and they need a hygienist there for the full day. So you kind of are limited. Yes, you can pick your schedule, but you kind of, I keep my schedule open 8 to 8. So that's whatever office, like their time that they're open, I'm available.
Mhm.
It's just whether or not I want to work that schedule that day. So yeah, I would say, like, yeah, you can cancel a day whenever you need, but how does that look to an office if you're constantly canceling last minute? I try to be as reliable as I can. Yeah, I'm picking my own schedule, but if I don't work, I don't get paid. So that's also a con. It's just like I have to work to get paid,
Right.
and I don't have PTO. I don't have a 401k match. So those are all things that I'm having to do on my own. Getting a solo 401k, if you're okay with strictly independent, like, so you're getting your own retirement plan and
Mhm.
doing your own taxes. So yeah, and it's not coming out every paycheck. You're having to pay quarterly taxes and um, be on top of that, because it's be scary to get audited.
We're basically what we're saying. It's the pros and cons of being really a business owner versus being an employee of a company. And there's always pros and cons to those things, more responsibilities in some ways, but more freedoms, more creative ways to change things. But yeah, so it makes sense that that's more for some than for others as an area of interest. I'm curious, you've been doing this for a little while now. that there's have to have been offices that you've gone into where you went, well, I don't know that I want to come back here again, or like the way they do things or who the people are that are working there that you feel like you're a fit or not so much a fit. You've probably seen a lot of different things, right? Compared to if you stayed in one practice.
Right. Well, and I think that's the other thing is variety. And I like meeting new people. I like seeing new practices. I like seeing how other offices are doing things, how even they've set up their office ergonomically, if it makes sense. I I personally don't go back to offices where ergonomically I don't feel like I can navigate the space well,
Mhm.
just for the longevity of my career.
Right.
So just yeah, just seeing that variety and um, yeah, it's interesting. I don't not go to too many offices. I think most dental practices are pretty easygoing and you can get along with them pretty well. But yeah, there's been a couple offices I've hit the little black button. Don't contact me.
Yeah, it's like dating, right? In a sense. I
Yeah,
mean, you kind of are dating different practices, really. I mean,
yeah,
you don't know fully what you're going to get, but also when you take a job in the first place, you don't always know what it'll be like, some months down the road or years down the road, whether you'll still feel like that's consistent with who you are and what you want, and things change, or sometimes you didn't see things in the initial hiring process. And so, again, pros and cons, right?
right, right.
So maybe you can share some thoughts about what you feel for those people who are thinking that they would like to temp. What are some of the things that you feel like have helped you stand out um, to be someone who's in demand, someone who does well in this approach? What's helped you, and what might others consider if they wanted to go in that direction?
Yeah, I think it's all about presentation, and that starts with your bio, right? Like, getting a professional photo. And all of those things are write-offs, right? If you get a photo shoot and it's a for your headshot, for your profile, that's a write-off. And getting scrubs that are fitted to you so that, you look presentable and put together when you go into offices, that apparel is a write-off. So, pretty much anything business related can be deducted on your taxes, which is going to be important if you've opened up an LLC, or I mean, you don't even have to open up an LLC, but you are still classified as a business owner on your taxes, if even if you don't. So you want all of those deductions because you are going to get taxed that 15% for self-employment and Medicaid and Social Security. So, and it's a lot. So taking those deductions is important. But yeah, I would just say presentation on your bio and how you present yourself going in and greeting everyone. I think a lot of hygienists wait for the dentist to greet them or the OM to greet them.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't wait for people to introduce yourself. So um, that's important. Um, yeah, and doing good work. I think a lot of the times, even the staff that book you are like, "Oh, you're just a temp, so you don't have to do this." Well, it's like, "Well, I went to school to do that.
Right.
I'm still a practicing clinician, and it's not I'm just a temp. I'm a dental hygienist that's here to serve in the same way everyone else is here to serve, and I can schedule appointments. I can do what's in my scope of practice, um, and I also think that you can't go into it thinking that I don't have to do these things. Like you just because you're a temporary worker, it's
Yeah.
you should want to continue to, you know, serve and do the things that you need to do.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking, because even though that's a good piece of conversation there, I think, because the idea of temp, kind of like a substitute teacher at school, and oftentimes that person they were just kind of trying to stand in the gap a bit
Yeah.
to cover, right? I'm just covering, which
Mhm.
is kind of implies lack of full engagement, right? Because and the students kind of help that by not really wanting to engage. So it's like, oh, you're just the substitute, so we don't even really have to respect you that much. But I like that mentality of, yes, I'm a temp, but I'm not just a placeholder. I'm coming in as a key contributor. A mindset like that seems like that would be a winning element, and also make your day feel like it's fully worthwhile, right?
Yeah, and that's what sets you apart, I think, because you come in with, Cloud has the timesheets. If they're not self-paying you with a check, you have your timesheets. Like print those out before, like so you're not depending on the office to provide those either. Like, and then do your own calculation. Like this is where all they're having to do is just sign the check if needed. Um, and then like I just will go in sometimes and it's just like, oh, okay, you don't have to do that. Or you don't have to schedule the next appointment. You don't have to. You can temp long enough to be like, okay, well, I'm proficient in all of these softwares. I can do all of that.
Mhm.
And I think that's also intimidating for people. It's just like, okay, well, they have that software. I don't know Open Dental. I don't know Practice Works or Dentrix or any of those things. And that's just going to take time and you're going to have to ask questions. But over time, now you're proficient in all of it.
Hmm.
So you can just go into an office and it's in flow. And I expect to do the things that I know how to do. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This is it's just seems like it's been an intriguing journey for you. And I was just as you were sharing that and about taxes and stuff, and I thought, oh, how many people listening or who can be listening into the future on this would think, oh, I could use help with those things. I'm intrigued by going this direction. So I kind of pictured you coaching, and part of that was like helping them see like this is how I move into an independent business person who thinks about things like, oh, write-offs, right, that others are not used to thinking. And it's like, oh, because there's all these things, right, that you've had to learn to get to this point and are still learning, right, how to optimize this moving forward. So I think it's great. I think it like feels
Yeah.
like a real natural progression.
Yes. Well, it did really happen kind of naturally and organically. I started my LLC prior to COVID, and it was going to be an e-commerce store. And so
Okay.
I'd already gone through that process of the legalities of, of that. And when COVID happened, and then I was like, well, no, I'm just going to go full time. I just pivoted and made my LLC just for dentistry.
Mhm.
And that kind of just like kind of happened that way. And yeah, I've learned so much, and it's it's crazy. It's like my mom works for the IRS, so like, wow,
Interesting.
all this, yeah, it is interesting. She's like, make sure you do this. I'm like, okay,
Right. So I guess that's an asset, right? Having a mom
right,
to give you be a little bit of a tax advisor, right?
right, yeah. But so yeah, it's been great.
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm proud of you for the journey that you're on and the next steps that you rise up to accept and move ahead. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that before we wrap up that you would like to share? Anything else that comes to mind, or anything you'd want to leave the listeners with?
Um, well, just with like the title of your podcast, the truth behind dentistry and like people plus purpose. I think that we all have one. I think we all have a purpose. If you're here, you are here to serve, and it's just finding that way to serve and have a purpose. And we're just figuring it out as we go. So yeah, I just encourage yeah, people just to do what they love. And I love dentistry, and I love the freedom this has allowed me to have. And yeah, see what's next.
That's great. And I love that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was a great kind of summation, I think, of what we've been talking about. And I think the idea of continuing to love what you're doing, sometimes people can stay with maybe pretty much the same thing and love that
Mhm.
for a whole career if they were permitted to do it. For other people, change is a part of continuing to love what you're doing. And so I just feel like there are too many people who accept certain things or maybe tolerate certain things that they wouldn't have to if they either
Mhm.
knew of more opportunity, some different opportunity or something that might be better for them. So I always appreciate voices that encourage people to consider that and to reach for something where I can continue to love how I'm spending my day. And so I feel like that was a great encouragement there. So thank you for that.
Yes. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So for the people listening who are thinking, I've enjoyed hearing from Renee and would love to ask you a question or maybe connect around some entrepreneurial idea or something, how might they reach you?
I'll just give you my email. So my email is just my first name, renee.gittings@gmail.com. I'm sure we could just like link that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone.
Okay, that's great. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your experience and your gathering pearls of wisdom to this point. And I look forward to continuing to stay in touch.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matthew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening. This is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. I am Matthew Norton, and my guest is Renee Gittings, and we appreciate you listening. Hopefully, you will subscribe and like what we're doing and share it with others. We appreciate that. We want to get the truth behind dentistry as far out in the world as possible, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.